Alright, so after I have worked on this guy a little more, I have decided to make the mesh that is going to be used for the muzzle fire. So previously I had done this with two separate particle emitters. Now it's going to be just one that's going to be parented on the middle of the object that is going to follow the torso bone and is going to basically be updating as it should. And I've worked on the shaders regarding this as well. So as you can see here for this asset on the weapon max set that I'm building, I have done the muzzle flash now, which is a single object. So no longer we're going to need two separate emitters. Now we have some issues that the randomization of textures are not per polygon, but that's all right in the case. And I have done a lot of changes, but as you can see here, the number of passes is just one now, which should also improve performance because we are reducing the amount of passes. So the way that you can pass a custom geometry to that is a little convoluted. I wish there was a simple way, but regardless, it works. So basically, I've exported this mesh here from Blender with the current position as it is. And I don't know if you noticed, but the origin of that belongs to the bone that I want, which in this case is going to be attached to the upper torso. So this way you do cursor to selected and you select the mesh you want and you do set origin to 3D cursor. So now once you export this, it's going to be relative from the 0 point. So once you export that to Godot, this is where the mesh is. And you're going to drop that inside the asset you're making, going to make it local. And once you grab the plane, which is right there, you're going to see it on the screen. You're going to copy its mesh. And this is the only way. I wish there was an automatic way of doing this, but I don't think I need to also code a little system to just do that. So then you're going to pass the mesh you just copy here, and that should be good to go. So now I am basically allowed to set the color of my shader as I see fit, create all kinds of effects regarding the muzzle fire. As you can see, there's a lot of things we can do, and mostly desaturated. I think it works best. There we go. For this is going to be a fire cannon sort of stuff, so mostly around here. I made some changes to my shader, so for me to use them a little faster, I did a custom shader, which basically restricts and reduces the code amount that I was using, because I was using the standard Godot Shader, which is a little bit slow because it uses more functionality over speed. But once you convert that to a custom shader and you can remove any extra lines you want and work with the shader the way you want. So this pretty much does it. Now, regarding the smoke effect, I found a really nice optimization trick that I'm going to be showing you guys. So disregard the color of the smoke. I am just going to copy that. So I'm going to be displaying to you. So here's something quite nice that I got from working on this. I'm going to increase the amount of particles to something really ridiculous just to show you the performance. So actually, should be above right there. So this is smoker number 1, and I'm going to be also displaying this other type of smoke here. And I'm going to be comparing performance with them. So let me just see if I can do them. So the first type of smoke here is using a color alpha transparency for the particles. And as you can see, performance drops around 26, and it's mostly on the GPU side of things because it's computing the particles. But I learned a optimization trick by experimenting a lot with the shaders, and I was able to increase the FPS by around 10 on this situation with that much amount of particles. So what is the trick here between these two smokes? One of them is using a different blend mode and is also using a alpha scissors threshold controller. So I'm going to be displaying this, how this works to you. So let me just put it back to the amount I was done programming, so you can see the effect it has. And also I believe I set this back to 15. So as you can see, this fairly light smoke is produced, and one of the things that I learned to do is to use the alpha scissors thresholds. So what this does is going to cut the transparency based on the threshold you put in here. So if I increase the visibility of my particle because it's on blending add mode, this is the way we can see it. If I disable this, you're going to see how it is going to work with color alpha transparency based. And this is how it was working previously, that you saw the performance drop. So I don't know if I can replicate that. So 48 FPS. And if I enable this, it should improve a little bit. Yeah, as you can see, 63. So what this alpha scissors thresholds does, this is a parameter for every shader you can create inside Godot. And because this is a custom shader, this is working a little different. But if you're using a standard shading Godot, this is a parameter inside of there. I believe this shader right here. I had a shader that I was using a standard one. I don't know if it's this one. Yes, it is. So here is the standard material 3D shader that you can create inside of Godot. And this alpha scissors threshold is on, I believe, here on transparency. And you can change this to alpha scissors, which basically is setting this command here to the parameter you want. So what is the difference between these two? I'm going to show you on this material here. So the scissors threshold is basically a threshold that's going to cut anything that it doesn't want as regard transparency. And you can see the effect it has on the material. Now this in turn is, you can think of sort of a clamp towards the alpha parameter of a texture that actually boosts performance. And as you saw, we gain around 10 to 15 FPS. Now the bad side of that is that the previous shader smoke that I was using, it was using the blend mix. It was using blend mix instead of a add shader. So the difference between these two is that blend mix has a different effect, a visual effect. And as you can see, the alpha scissors command here does that with its material. So if I disable this, you're going to see the alpha colors as transparency, and that it gives a sort of smooth effect. But whenever you activate this scissor threshold, this is what happens. So if you're using scissors threshold with alpha, you probably are not going to want this effect. If you were using a cartoon game or any other style of game, this could potentially work. But I learned that by doing blend add, it adds a nice effect. Also, something that I learned to do when using the scissors threshold is to multiply by the alpha on the albedo color. So if I remove this line here, you're going to see that because my texture is pure white, the scissors threshold only changing the alpha values is going to make everything not transparent. So for you to get that nice shading back again, I simply use the albedo texture alpha to be multiplied over the color of the texture, and this is the effect it gets. So nice little trick there. And I believe if I put this to blend add, you're going to see that also looks quite differently. So as you can see, this does not work. That multiplying by the texture alpha on the color part actually makes quite a difference, as you can see right there. And because blend add works like a glow effect, by reducing it and making it darker, it makes somewhat transparent. So this is a nice topic if you want to optimize your particles. So now let's go ahead and let's reduce the color of this particle. And actually I'm going to make these scissors a little more smoother, so I don't lose a lot of it. And you can also use this to texturize. So let me show you something before I forget. So on my particle processing material, I am going to change the color from color values display, and this, because it's being used on the shader under color, is going to activate it and use it accordingly. And as you can see, if I leave the scissors threshold quite high, and let's say I emit a lot of texture, like, yeah, let's put a little something less, like, you can see that this creates kind of a texture, like a noisy smoke, which is kind of nice, not gonna lie. So the scissors threshold you can also use to texturize somewhat, because it's going to clamp the texture. You're going to see the effect it has, so pretty nice effect. And depending on the type of shader you're making, this could potentially work as well. Now I want a smooth effect, so I'm going to use 001. And as you can see, it creates much more smoother particles, and I'm going to be using a lot fewer, 5. So this final asset here is much more optimized than what you saw under the standard material with the transparency set to color. So this is a nice little trick. Now, you're going to be asking, well, is this going to make a difference? Well, in the case of my testing scene, if I run my test project here, I don't recall the amount of units I'm using in my game at the moment. I think it's around 300 or 400. If you multiply those assets 400 times, that simple difference is going to make a change in FPS. So as a reminder, the FPS you're seeing here is not the actual FPS I get with this project because OBS is running in the background to record this. So the FPS is a little higher than what you're seeing here. But as you can see, all the units firing with the same particle system, we are not getting a lot performance cost for doing that. So I think this actually is pretty optimized as it is. And of course, I'm going to be using this with other things as well. And of course, because I did not delete the other smoke assets, the code that I'm having on my units is for it to iterate through all the other smoke and turn them on as children. So if I put them as children, that will not happen. So let me just show you what it looks like. So as you can see, whenever we move all the units, this is what it's going to look like whenever a group of similar mech units will be attacking an enemy we're going to be passing. As you can see, it looks pretty cool. And the last thing will be to add some sound effects, and we're pretty much golden. So that is how you can create the asset for the mech unit. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.